Hey guys, Zeteo here. Today we're going to continue on with the Alpha Cup. Today we're going to be looking at the losers brackets. The losers bracket quarterfinals between Zeteo, also known as Yanami, and UD, playing against ZLO, also known as ZLO. I should just say ZLO. It has a Russian meaning that I forget what it means, but anyways, let's get into this game here.
Game started.
All right, so at the bottom center here we have Zeteo, also known as Yanami, spawned as our blue Armada player, and at the top center we have ZLO, spawned as our red Armada player. Yeah, lots of Armada in this tournament, due to the last balance patch, but that doesn't mean that we don't see Cortex at all. I mean, I think it's quite interesting that we still see plenty of Cortex. But yeah, let's talk about the map a little bit. Since these players are Armada and are probably going to be doing bots, I should probably mention that, you might look at this map and think ticks can't cross this water, but they in fact can. Ticks can't cross water that is deeper than 5, and this water is 5. If we look at the bottom left here, elevation -5, so ticks can absolutely cross this little stream that goes to the center of the map. Other things to note include, the mountainous area here. Bots can traverse over it, so it certainly comes into play. It does block radar, so it's something to take into consideration as you place your radar. Very important to be able to see, basically this right-hand side of the mountain, to make sure that your constructor that's going out there is rather safe. Can be a tricky thing to do. But yeah, let's take a look at what these players are doing. Looks like wind is quite low. 4 to 14 is, it's a little bit more, it's a little bit less dynamic than usual. It's a little bit more, whatever the word is. I don't know why I'm having a brain fart right now, apparently. But either way, solar is not a bad idea if the wind is that low. So 2 solar for, for Zeteo here. I always, I'm a little bit hesitant on what to call him exactly, but yeah, Resbot out, and then some ticks out, to defend and maybe some to go across the map and scout. He does have a couple ticks across the map actually already, so no constructor yet, but yeah, just that, Resbot. Meanwhile for ZLO, we do have a faster move out with this constructor, and it's going a little bit sooner into pawn, so going to be trying to lay down some pressure with that, but we'll see if he has enough for defense. Okay, looks like that. Whoa, that guy's not going to get picked off. I thought this tick was for sure in trouble, but off he goes. Resbot out now for ZLO. Going to be eating those trees. The trees are pretty important here as well. So very good moves here, of course, from our players in the quarterfinals here. But yeah, Zeteo actually going for a fast construction turret, and this is going to allow him to move his commander out, and that means he's going to have that build power. Working on mexes, that 300 build power is pretty substantial, whether it be boosting the lab or going out and grabbing mexes. But yeah, with that early con turret, going to be able to go out and grab mexes. Meanwhile, let's see, ZLO, yeah, no con turret as of yet. Looks like he did lose a mex here. So, it has rebuilt that. Another tick comes in here. Maybe it can do some more damage to that. There is a pawn here, so it looks like it decides not to. I'm trying to find a different angle. Resbot actually in trouble here. Resbot is definitely going to go down here. One tick, one Resbot, the Resbot doesn't do so well, does not attack back, and doesn't actually have that much hit points either. So, losing that Resbot certainly a big deal, as that's going to hurt his energy income for a little while here. Looks like ZLO trying to pressure this Resbot, to kind of even that out, but no dice, as Zeteo's doing a nice job, just having a pawn and a tick over there to defend it. Meanwhile, in the center of the map, we do see a small engagement here. It looks like Zeteo has picked off a pawn here. It doesn't look like he's lost anything for himself, so must have been a nice engagement. To be able to pick that off without taking too much damage. Could even repair those units up if he really wanted to, but I think for now, the APM being spent on, just moving forward, trying to be aggressive against the, any potential cons out there expanding. But yeah, this con that was building the the turret, added on some wind. Now working on the mechs is on the right hand side. So with this, Chisado's going to have this faster expansion to the left. Also have this expansion to the right. And if we take a look at ZLO's base, he's getting a little bit behind. He's got that one con out on the left, but there's no expanding on the right. Just trying to crank out a lot of units. But I think this map is long enough that he's not able to actually do that much damage here. The con turret, if you build it at the right time, if you have the right amount of income for it and boost out with your commander, you can certainly build it pretty quickly. So I think as long as Zeteo keeps this con alive, he'll be in a very good position. And so far, yeah, it's still alive and kicking. So I think Zeteo already going to grab a bit of a lead here. For now, ZLO does have the army advantage, but if we take a look at it, most of it is at his base. He's just trying to defend. Some of these units, out in the front are not actually going to be doing that much. And yeah, these mechs is being picked off here. It certainly doesn't help him. On the other side of the map, we do have actually the constructor finally went down here, from this pawn. And now this pawn, you might be wondering, why is he attacking this location like this? He's just trying to destroy the wreck so that they cannot be picked up. But unfortunately, that's going to also mean that his pawn gets picked off for free. Ideally, you go and destroy the con turret or the constructor first, not the pawn, because picking up that constructor is certainly a bigger deal than picking up the pawn. But yeah, on the other side of the map, we do have Yanami coming in here, doing some damage, but at the same time, ZLO, plenty of units out here to defend, decides to split off some units and save them for later, and just, try to do what he can with the few units that kept going. And yeah, the loss of this mechs, not really that big of a deal. It is just one mechs, but, as it so happens, ZLO here, desperately needs energy at the moment, so he's actually prioritizing that instead of the mechs. And, that means, his income is going to be a little bit shorter because of that. But yeah, look at this expansion on the left. Just having that commander out there, to, grab these mechs is a big deal, And then you might be wondering about these solar collectors here. It's pretty common, it's pretty standard that if you need energy ASAP, you don't want to you don't want your economy to falter because you're low on energy. Cons are a little bit too slow maybe to build some energy, so you just use your commander to build these solars. They do have a bit more hit points for sure, compared to wind turbines. So, it's kind of okay to do that. Of course you don't want to lose them, but it's just a good measure to make sure your energy economy is in a good position here. Lots of pawns coming forward here. I'm pretty sure he knows that the commander's here. Zeteo, seeing what's coming, decides to run towards the water, and ZLO backs down. I think that's a really important thing to think about here. Is there is this puddle of water that the pawns can't get the commander in. So with Zeteo moving towards that, there's really no opportunity to run in there with your pawns and try to kill it. I think the best case scenario, you get a large chunk of your pawns degunned, and then the commander is in the water, so you can't even kill it. So, certainly a nice move from Zeteo, just playing it kind of safe with the water there. You don't want to get surrounded and destroyed this early on, especially when you're in a lead when it comes to all the different kinds of metrics here. But yeah, Zeteo defending against these pawns, but I think it's a little bit too late for your ZLO here. Just kind of sent these attacks. They could have been a little bit earlier, like he had those units stationed, parked in front of his base, maybe more in a defensive posture, thinking that Zeteo was going to attack, but instead Zeteo attacks along the sides and does raiding that way, and those pawns aren't doing anything at that point. So I think just a really smart move from Zeteo, and ZLO, instead of pushing forward, stood there, and all those pawns were kind of useless for a little bit, and now that's he sent them across the map so late, and Chisado's already built up enough units to to deal with it. So I think this game is certainly in Chisado's favor at this point, primarily because of the expansions, but also I think it has a lot to do with that construction turret, just getting that commander out to to expand while still being able to pump out units. Yeah, little bits of engagements on the bottom here. But at the top, we do have some engagements as well. These pawns getting into the base, doing a little bit of damage. And yeah, I think with that, yeah, ZLO taps out. I think just realizing, like, okay, if I'm taking damage and I'm behind, like, that's not great. I can't, the game's not going to go in my favor. So let's tap out here. Let's, move on to the next one. The writing's kind of on the wall, right? But yeah, let's load up our second game. Let's see. So once again, this is the quarterfinals of the losers bracket. So whoever loses, this set is going to be out of the tournament, and whoever wins it will move on to the, the semifinals of the losers bracket. So let's see. Let's find our next game. But yeah, when you build that consort, like, there is a little bit of a window of opportunity, that the player, or a little window of like you're vulnerable while you build it, and you're spending so much metal on that you're gonna have a few less units out, and I think ZLO is just a little slow to take advantage of that, trying to like defend everything that he's got going on, instead of realizing that my opponent's actually gearing up to expand faster than I am, and I need to lay down the pressure myself. But yeah, let's get into this next game here.
Game started.
All right, so we have Yanami spawned at the bottom right as our blue Cortex player, deciding to go Cortex here. And then we have ZLO at the top left, spawned as our red Cortex player. So both players going Cortex. These positions are quite interesting. I would think that Yanami is going to be doing vehicles from this position. I'm not sure what ZLO is going to be doing from that position, but either way, if we look at the, like, where the spawn boxes I think they're pretty much like that. Obviously these starting positions are a little bit different here. So in this corner that Zeteo spawned in, it's a little bit safer. It's easier to defend. You have that high ground to help you, but you also have only so many directions that they can attack you from. So that helps out in the early game. But at the same time, you're further away from the center. You're further away from controlling, more of the map. So, ZLO in a more forward position here, going to have an easier time, building defenses and things to, section off like the middle of the map once he moves his commander out. But let's take a look at what factories these guys have. It looks like a vehicle lab is indeed going down for Zeteo here on this high ground position. And then across the map, we have ZLO going for a bot lab. So yeah, I think these are reasonable choices given the spawn locations of these players. I'm not sure if ZLO knows that Zeteo likes to go vehicles on this map or something like that. Is there some kind of, is there some kind of thing where you're like kind of reading the player a little bit? Is what I'm curious about. But yeah, it looks like ZLO, just adding on Resbot, getting those crystals. The crystals are pretty substantial here, so certainly a nice move to do. And vehicles, of course, don't have that possibility. So there's that whole thing to think about. But yeah, I would think that's with how this generally plays out, you get as a vehicle player, you get a lot of scouts. Try to apply pressure. Those scouts, of course, are they turn slowly. They have a hard time. Dealing damage as you run in there. Like, they take a second for the turret to turn around, the turn towards the target and stuff like that. So I think these are primarily just going to be for scouting and for potential ticks if his opponent is Armada, and things like that. So he's going to be able to have the aggression early on because of these scouting vehicles, but at the same time they're not really going to be able to do too much. And once the grunt numbers come out in a little bit more force, I'm sure that he's going to be applying some pressure back. But yeah, it really depends on how good the the setup here is for ZLO. Is he cranking out units at a good rate, or is he trying to expand a lot quicker? We'll just kind of have to wait and see. He does have 2 cons out so far, expanding So these grunts are primarily probably going to be sitting back to defend. The more cons you have out expanding, the more guys you need for defense to protect them. So, maybe not going to throw down too much aggression early on here because of that. Resbot gets in a little bit of trouble, but he does manage to save it. Meanwhile, across the map here, we do have a grunts, looking for some damage. Incisor already popped out, already going to be able to, defend this location. And, this grunts is a bit slower than the incisor, so it's going to be caught there, unable to, pressure this con too hard. But yeah, another grunt's out on the right-hand side, just looking for another con to see if there's anything else going on over there. Meanwhile, back at ZLO's base, we do have a Rascal coming in. But yeah, once again, these units don't, they don't deal any substantial damage, and it takes them a while for the turret of the unit to like turn towards the target. So yeah, it just gets picked off. Actually, it looks like a metal extractor was taken out, but the constructor is still very much alive, so not the hugest deal. Unfortunately for him, though, it is sitting idle at the moment. I think it probably was trying to reclaim that unit or something. But yeah, going back at it now and adding on, adding on those mexes. But yeah, taking a look at this in the broad scheme of things, I think because of Chizato's position, and just doing everything so well, he kind of has this, he kind of has plenty of mexes for himself at the moment, going for those clusters of 3 mexes, now setting up, an LLT in this position, even has incisors to protect it. Actually, the incisors are starting to move on, so maybe these grunts can run up there and deal some damage before the tower gets down. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, income-wise, he is a little bit more ahead because of it. ZLO, when you go bots, like, you got to spend a little bit more on energy, and I think that kind of slows you down a little bit. But at the same time, having to defend against all those scouts means you got to pump out enough grunts. You can't pressure, and then the vehicle player gets into a reasonable position here. Unfortunately, those grunts did not run up the ramp, and the incisors moved back into position to defend. That position there. So, ZLO unable to find damage here. And yeah, this is also a cheeky little thing you can do. If you're the bot player, they can run up to this mountain here, up to this plateau, and vehicles can't really do anything about it. So that's just going to chill there. Actually decides to move it out now, trying to look for a constructor, trying to find the right opportunity. 2 grunts on the right-hand side here. They're going to find this constructor, and that's going to be a nice pick-off here. Assuming they don't run past it. Okay, yeah, they're taking it out. And yeah, I think this just kind of comes down to a lack of radar. Chizato, of course, someone that's known for stressing how important radar is, but he himself is kind of neglecting it on this right-hand side here. So yeah, those grunts able to move up this cliff here, which it doesn't really look like a place where bots can run up, but they absolutely can. Vehicles not so much, so it's just something that's Chizato's going to need to pay attention to. So he's keeping these incisors back to deal with that. Meanwhile, does have a group of 4 incisors out. Finds that Resbot, picks it off. These grunts coming in here again, but obviously the incisors are there to defend it. Another grunt's coming in from this angle. Possibly, yeah, it looks like they're going to get the metal extractor. I'm not 100% sure if he knows that this tower exists, but he can certainly try to go along the bottom, to get into that base there, and maybe take out those mexes. But yeah, groups of incisors going across the map, looking to go up to the high ground here. The pressure. Actually, yeah, he does know where the base is, so yeah, primarily just looking for mexes to destroy. But as he does that, ZLO is. Doesn't have the expansions up there yet. So, these incisors going to run into those pawns in a moment here. Small engagement here towards the center of Chizato's base. Not a big deal. But yeah, here comes the grunts hitting these incisors. And the incisors are a little bit spread out here. So the grunts taking a very favorable engagement here. But one does slip by. So this guy here going to be able to pressure, either down the cliff, or maybe he parks up there for a minute and waits for the con to reach that point. But yeah, either way, it's kind of tricky with these vehicles, with these high ground positions that the grunts can just walk up to. It's really annoying because those bots, are still alive, which means, it's kind of generating threat if Chizato, needs to pay attention to that, make sure it doesn't run in and kill a Khan at a later date. So certainly can come into play here. Yeah, it looks like this incisor does come down the hill. It's going for the Khan now. There was a self-D on the mechs. But yeah, incisors have enough health that it's going to be just fine. Look at this, ZLO building a wall, to disrupt the movements of this incisors. Now the grunts are on here, and I think that wall actually just saved this construction bot. The incisor, trying to hit the constructor is now hitting the wall instead. And I think he literally just saved it with the wall. That's actually something that I've been kind of trying to stress to players, is that like walls are useful, and if you're going to build a temporary unit to try to save a constructor, like walls are actually a pretty good deal since they build so quickly and have so much hit points. Of course the footprint is a bit smaller than say like trying to build like labs in front. It can certainly help out too, but walls, in that particular case when the unit's so close, I think is a little bit more helpful than trying to put down something like a lab. But yeah, incisors trying to do what they can, but it looks like, yeah, they're primarily going to be picked off here by this horde of grunts. This is a substantial number of grunts, and we hear some air units coming out here for ZLO. Looking at the big picture here, I actually think that this is somewhat of a mistake, primarily because you're behind on economy. If you're behind and it's like at this stage of the game where you don't really have that much income yet, going air basically means you're going to have less ground units, less ground forces. So you kind of need to play rather defensively. You kind of need to defend your cons and stuff against the incisors that are coming in. And I think ZLO, missing a radar on this right-hand side, it's going to see these incisors rather late. All of his grunts are moving down to the right side towards Chizato's base. And yeah, I don't think these are going to get that much damage done either, because, there's plenty of incisors down here to defend. So Chizato just doing a great job allocating like where the grunts are. But yeah, with this air lab, like, maybe you can get a nice bombing run in, but I think at this level of play, players, spread out their buildings pretty well. And I think the damage isn't really going to be that big. Maybe you can surprise them and maybe their anti-air is late. But as it so happens, I think it's scouted. I think, well, maybe not scouted, but I'm not sure why. But yeah, there is definitely some anti-air going up here from Chizato. Looks like these incisors at the top now moving in. Self-D tries to go off for the LLTs. Yeah, that one just needlessly explodes. Doesn't actually do anything since the units are so far away. But yeah, this position is definitely threatened. And ZLO's kind of in trouble here. Just doesn't have enough ground forces to deal with all these units. I think that air lab's a big expenditure. And I'm not sure if it was a situation where it's like, oh, wait, I have a ton of metal. I might as well put down another lab because I kind of screwed up my macro or something like that. I'm not sure if it's because of that or if it's because he just decided this is the play I want to go with. But either way, the air units are absolutely scouted at this point. Even the units coming up here sees the air lab. So these bombers are probably not going to be able to do too much. They do bomb, this position here on the way to the main base. But yeah, I don't think this is actually going to do all that much damage. Now, of course, the bombs drop pretty well in advance before the bombers get in range of the anti-air towers. But yeah, looking at the damage here, it's very, very limited. I don't even think we really saw a difference in production here. So with that, I think that's basically going to be it, because ZLO here, basically going for an all-in kind of play here, as his base is no longer expanding at the top. His income's kind of in a bit of, it's not like, totally destroyed or something like that, but certainly not in a good position after doing something like that. And that's probably the GG, I would think. Yeah, GG is called, and ZLO is out of the tournament. Chizato moves on. But yeah, just seeing all these incisors moving up as well, it's like, okay, what is your real opportunity to even catch up right here? Because you're gonna, you're probably gonna take damage with all those incisors coming in here. We can take a look at the graphs really quick, I suppose, but I think the graph should be pretty clear with what happened during the game. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this cast, and I hope you guys learned something from it. I will be continuing on to cast the rest of the Alpha Cup, so stay tuned, and thanks for watching.